Hello, my friend. Welcome back to Speak English Daily. I'm Emma, and I'm really glad you're here today. Before we start, I want to tell you something. Today's story is told only with simple sentences. Words and phrases you already know, things you've probably heard 100 times. And I want you to notice something as you listen. With just those simple words, we're going to spend a whole hour together, living through a complete day from morning to night. You don't need perfect English to tell a real story. You just need the courage to begin. Today's story has two people in it. Me, Emma, and Hana, who moved here from Japan just 3 weeks ago. Her English is at an early level, and she's still finding her way in the language and in this new city. Today, we spent the whole day together. We went to a strawberry farm. The rain came and changed our plans. We found shelter in a small cafe, then met some friends for coffee, cooked dinner together, watched a movie, and talked about life. All of it in English. And in between all of that, something happened that I think you'll find useful. Maybe even something that changes how you feel about speaking English yourself. And one more thing before we begin. You don't have to understand every word of what you are about to hear. Follow the story. Follow the feeling. That's enough. Ready? Let's start the day. Before the story begins, I want to share one thought with you. Something that took me a long time to really understand, even as an English teacher. Most people wait until their English is good enough before they start speaking. They study and study and study, and then one day they think, okay, now I'm ready. But that day almost never comes, because fluency isn't a destination you reach after enough preparation. It's something that grows from the doing of it, from the hundreds of imperfect conversations that each add something tiny to the total. Speaking English doesn't happen after the studying, it happens during the living. And today, Hana lived. Hana understood this today, not because I taught it to her, but because she lived through it. Let's warm up before we start. Say these words with me, slowly and out loud. Don't just listen, actually say them. Morning. Rain. Coffee. Farm. Strawberry. Neighbor. Together. Good. Now, a little longer. Say these with me. I woke up this morning and the sky was blue. By noon, the clouds had rolled in. We ran inside just before the rain started. It was a good day. Not the one I planned, but a good one. Notice what just happened. Those sentences weren't simple exactly. They had some longer words, some phrases you might not use every day, but you understood them. You followed the meaning. That's the whole point today. You understand more than you think you do, and you can say more than you believe you can. The only thing standing between you and a real conversation is the decision to begin. Now, let's go. The story is waiting. It was a Monday morning in July, and the sky outside my window was that particular shade of pale blue that promises a good day. Clear, light, the kind of blue that makes you want to be outside. I was in the lobby of my building at 7:15, bag over my shoulder and a travel mug of coffee in my hand, heading out to the strawberry farm I'd been meaning to visit for weeks. The lobby was quiet, just the hum of the building, the green plant in the corner that has somehow survived 3 years without much attention, and the soft click of the elevator doors opening. Out stepped a young woman I'd seen before, but never really spoken to. Small backpack, light jacket, and the particular expression of someone who is about to go somewhere alone and isn't quite sure yet how it will go. It was Hana. She moved into apartment 4B just 3 weeks ago. I knew this because Anna at the front desk had mentioned it, and we'd exchanged exactly one conversation before today. A brief hello near the mailboxes while she was carrying in bags of groceries and I was holding the door. "Oh," she said, seeing me. "Good morning." Very polite. Very careful. The way people speak when every sentence still feels like a small test. "Good morning, Hana. Where are you headed?" She looked at her phone, then back at me. "I want to go to the strawberry farm, near the park. I saw it on Google." I couldn't help smiling. "I'm going there too." Her eyes went wide. "Really? You also?" Same plan, same bus, probably. She looked genuinely relieved. That particular kind of relief that comes when you realize you don't have to do something unfamiliar alone. "Can I come with you? Is it okay?" "Of course. Let's go together." We walked out into the warm morning air, and I let the conversation find its own pace. I didn't pepper her with questions. I didn't try to make it a lesson. I just walked beside her and let things happen naturally, the way conversations do when nobody is trying too hard. After a moment, she said, "How long have you been live here?" I said, "About 2 years in this building," and then gently, without making a thing of it, "How long have you been living here?" She heard it. I could tell by the small pause. "How long have I been living here?" She repeated, quietly, almost to herself. 3 weeks, not a long time. That's the thing about good language learning. It doesn't always look like learning. Sometimes it looks like just walking to a bus stop on a warm morning, talking about nothing important, with someone patient enough to show you the right way without making you feel wrong about the way you went. We reached the bus stop, and while we waited, she told me a little about herself. She came for her husband's work. She used to work in a bakery in Japan, 5 years making bread and pastries. She wanted to find something similar here, but her English made her nervous about applications, about interviews, about all the ordinary conversations that suddenly feel enormous when you're doing them in a language that isn't yours. "Your English sounds pretty good to me," I said. She shook her head, modest but genuinely uncertain. "In Japan, I study English for 6 years, but only reading, only writing, never speaking. So now," she paused, searching, "now the words are all here," she touched her head, "but they don't come out here," she touched her mouth. I thought, I have heard this so many times. Students from all over the world, Japan, Korea, Brazil, who spent years learning the grammar, reading the books, passing the tests, and then they arrived somewhere English was the only language, and they discovered that none of it had taught them how to open their mouths. The knowledge was there, the voice wasn't. Every single time it breaks my heart a little. The bus came, we got on, found seats by the window, and settled in for the ride as the city moved past us, bright and warm in the early July light. I watched her watching the city, the way she looked at each block as it passed, taking it in with that particular attentiveness of someone for whom everything is still new. A bakery just opening its shutters, a man walking 2 enormous dogs, children in a school uniform at a crosswalk, half of them still eating breakfast, their backpacks bigger than they were. "What is the neighborhood called?" she asked. I told her the name. She repeated it quietly, storing it away. "Do you like it here? This city?" I thought about it honestly. Yes. It took about a year before I really felt it, that feeling of belonging somewhere, of knowing a place. But now when I walk these streets, I see things I recognize. People I know, rhythms I understand. It happened slowly, without me noticing, and then one day it was just true. She was quiet for a moment after that. 1 year, she said, not sadly, just noting it, like someone adjusting their expectations to something real. On the bus, I asked her something that surprised her a little. Do you use ChatGPT? She said, I have it, but I don't really use it. Can I show you something? She handed me the phone, curious. I opened ChatGPT and started explaining, not as a teacher with a lesson plan, but the way you'd explain something to a friend you wanted to help. Most people use ChatGPT for writing or for questions, but it also has a voice function. You can just talk to it like a conversation. And the thing is, it never gets tired, it never gets bored, it never makes you feel embarrassed for making a mistake. She looked at the phone. Like, practice? Like a very patient conversation partner, but the important part is how you set it up. I typed as I talked, showing her. You write something like this at the beginning. I am a beginner English learner. Please speak to me like a friendly person, not a teacher. Use simple words. If I say something that people cannot understand, not small grammar mistakes, but something really unclear, please repeat the correct version naturally and then keep going. Don't stop to explain, and ask me one question at a time. Hana read the message carefully. Only one question at a time? Yes, because ChatGPT sometimes asks 3 questions at once, and that's overwhelming when you're still finding your words. And the grammar mistakes, why not correct everything? I thought about how to explain this simply. Imagine you're trying to tell a story, and every few seconds someone stops you to say, actually, you should say went, not go. Actually, you should say a cat, not the cat. After a while, you stop talking. Not because you can't, but because the interruptions are exhausting. The goal isn't to be perfect. The goal is to be understood. She was quiet for a moment, watching the city outside the bus window. In Japan, she said softly, my English teacher had a red pen. Every mistake, red mark. My homework was always very red. And did that make you want to speak more? No, she said. It made me want to speak less. Exactly. That's why we don't do that. I gave her the phone back and showed her the microphone button. Try it. Just say good morning and see what happens. She took a breath, that particular kind of breath people take before doing something they're a little afraid of, and pressed the button. Good morning, she said. ChatGPT answered immediately, warm and easy. Good morning. How are you today? Hana looked up at me with something close to wonder. It answered. It always does. And it's not scary. Never scary. Just a conversation. She tried a few more exchanges, haltingly at first, the way anyone does when something feels slightly absurd until suddenly it doesn't. Within a few minutes, she was describing the morning, asking questions, fumbling for a word and then finding it. The whole thing bumpy and imperfect and genuinely alive. At one point, she said something like, I go to the farm today, then paused and corrected herself. Wait, I went to the farm. Nice, I said. You caught that yourself. I heard it. Something sounded not right. See, that's how it actually works. The more you speak, the more your ear starts to notice by itself. Little by little, your brain catches the difference, not because someone corrects you, but because you've heard it enough times that the wrong version starts to feel odd. She looked at her phone for a long moment, thinking. Then she said, 5 minutes, every morning. I can do this. 5 minutes every morning will change your English more than 6 years of red pen homework. She smiled at that, a small, real smile. The bus reached our stop and we got off into the warm July morning, both of us slightly lighter for the conversation, the kind of good mood that comes not from anything dramatic, but from feeling like you've been genuinely heard. The city gave way to greener things as we walked, the streets widening, the air sweetening, and somewhere ahead of us, invisible but already present in the smell of the air, the farm was waiting. The farm was everything a July morning should be. Wide and green, rows of strawberry plants stretching away from us in both directions, the air sweet and earthy and warm. When Hana stepped off the path and saw it all, she stopped walking entirely. She just stood there, bag in her hand, completely still, looking. "Wow," she said. Just that one word, but her face said everything. I let her look for a moment without saying anything. Some things deserve a pause. After a while, I nudged her gently. "Tell me what you see, just in English, simple words, whatever comes." She scanned the field, choosing. "I see many strawberries, very red, and green leaves, and the sky is blue, but some clouds now. It smells sweet, like fruit and earth together." "That's good, Hana, really good." "That's good, Hana, really good. It's easy here. Everything is in front of me." That's the thing, I thought. Put someone in front of a strawberry field with a basket and a gentle question, and language comes naturally. It doesn't always come under fluorescent lights with a grammar worksheet. It comes when there's a reason and a place, and someone who's actually listening to the meaning rather than monitoring the form. We picked up baskets and walked into the rows. The picking itself was slow and happy work, bending down, checking each strawberry carefully, choosing the ones that were the right shade of deep red. I showed Hannah the trick. The darker the color, the sweeter the taste. "Really?" She picked the darkest one she could find and ate it on the spot. Her eyes closed for a second, just briefly. "That is so much better." "Right? The pale ones from the supermarket can't compare." "This is English lesson and food lesson at same time," she said, and then catching herself, "at the same time." "The best kind of lesson," I said. We worked our way along the row, talking in the easy, intermittent way you do when your hands are busy with something else. Conversation without the pressure of eye contact. Ideas surfacing naturally between the work. She told me about the bakery in Japan, about how her grandmother had taught her to choose ingredients with care. Never rush, always look, always smell. She asked me how long I'd been teaching English, and I told her about the community center, about my students from a dozen different countries, about the particular joy of watching someone find their voice in a language that wasn't theirs. "How do you say," she asked at one point, pausing mid-pick, "when you feel happy, but also very calm at the same time, like peaceful, but more?" "Contented," or "at peace." You can say, "I feel at peace." She tried it. "At peace." Then, "I feel at peace right now." "Me too." We picked in comfortable silence for a while after that. The good kind of silence. The kind that happens between people who have found an easy rhythm together. A bee drifted past, heavy with whatever it was carrying. A butterfly moved from plant to plant with the unhurried purpose of something that has nowhere particular to be. Somewhere above us, birds continued their July conversation, indifferent to ours. I thought about how much English happens in exactly this kind of moment, not in classrooms or textbooks, but in the in-between spaces of a real day, when your hands are occupied and your guard is down, and you're just talking. The way it was always supposed to work. It was Hana who noticed the sky first. "Emma, the clouds." I looked up. The pale blue of the morning had given way to something thicker and grayer, and to the west, the direction the clouds were coming from, the sky had turned the particular color that means business. It was moving fast for a summer cloud, the way storm clouds do. The woman at the bread queue a few rows over looked up too, and she said, "Uh-oh," pleasantly, like someone who has been surprised by weather before and decided not to be bothered by it. I checked the weather app on my phone. This morning it said, sunny, 82 degrees F. Now it said, thunderstorms likely this afternoon. Afternoon? It was barely 10 o'clock. "I think we should go," I said. "Yes, fast picking," she said, and we both started moving with renewed purpose, collecting what we could before the sky made the decision for us. The rain started before we made it to the end of the row. First one drop, then 5, then all of it at once. The way summer rain arrives when it's been building all morning and finally runs out of patience. Hana looked at the sky, looked at her basket, and started laughing. That surprised, happy laugh of someone who can't believe what's happening but finds it wonderful anyway. We ran. There was a small wooden building near the farm entrance, a cafe really, just a few tables and a counter, the kind of place that exists for exactly this reason, a roof when you need one. We pushed through the door together, wet and slightly breathless, and stood there for a moment dripping on the welcome mat. "We made it," Hana said, still laughing. "We made it, and we still have our strawberries." She held up her basket triumphantly. The strawberries inside were fine, perfect, actually, each one Hana had chosen with her grandmother's careful eye. We found a table by the window. Outside, the rain was coming down hard now, turning the strawberry fields gray and silver. The building was warm and smelled of coffee and something baking, and the sound of rain on the roof was one of those sounds that makes inside feel more inside. A woman came to take our order, notepad, pen behind her ear, the easy manner of someone who's done this 1,000 times. I looked at Hana, waiting. Hana looked at the menu board. I could see her reading it carefully, her lips moving slightly. She was nervous, I could tell, by the way her hands tightened around her basket. But she took a breath, and she looked at the woman, and she said, "Can I have hot chocolate, please?" "Of course. And you?" the woman asked me. "Coffee, please. Black." The woman smiled and walked away, and Hana turned to me with wide eyes. "I did it!" "You did, and she understood you perfectly." "I was scared." "I know, but you spoke anyway. That's what brave looks like. Not the absence of fear, but the decision to go ahead through it." She looked at her cup and smiled, quietly, to herself, the kind of smile that comes when you've exceeded your own expectations. Outside, the rain was coming down harder now. A family ran past the window under one umbrella. A small child lifted off her feet between two adults, all three of them laughing at the comedy of it. The drinks came, her hot chocolate, my coffee, and we sat with our hands wrapped around our cups while the rain came down in earnest outside the window. It was one of those summer storms that means business, without drama. No lightning, no thunder, just a steady, committed downpour that clearly intended to stay a while, the kind that, if you were inside and warm, was actually quite pleasant. Hana watched the rain running down the glass with something approaching contentment. In Japan, we have a rainy season, June, July, everything very wet. I used to hate it. And now? She considered. Now, I think, it is nice if you are inside. It always comes down to where you're standing, I said. She smiled at that, and for a moment we just sat and watched the rain together. Two people from different parts of the world sharing a table in a small wooden cafe while the strawberry fields turned silver outside. "Can I ask you something?" Hana said. "Always." The people who learn English well, what is different about them from people who study for years but still can't speak? It was a good question, a real one. They speak before they're ready. That's the honest answer. They don't wait until they feel confident. They speak, and the confidence comes after. always comes after, never before. She turned her cup slowly in her hands, thinking, but what if I say something wrong? You will say things wrong. Everyone does, including native speakers. The question is, did the other person understand you? If yes, then it worked. The grammar can be cleaned up later. The connection happened now. Outside, the rain drummed steadily against the window. Inside, we were warm and dry and talking, two people who had met in a lobby 2 hours ago and were now, somehow, deep in a real conversation about something that mattered. The hot chocolate in front of Hana had cooled to the perfect temperature, and she was holding the cup in both hands the way people do when they found a comfortable place and want to stay a while. I think about this sometimes, how quickly trust builds when the conditions are right. A rainy day, a warm room, a question asked honestly. Two people who needed somewhere to be. That's all it takes sometimes. Not the right words, just the right weather and the willingness to sit still long enough to let a conversation happen. I have a group, I said, that meets every 2 weeks. Real people. Some of my students, some people I've met at other meetups. They get together at a cafe near our building and just talk in English. That's the only rule. No Japanese, no Korean, no Spanish, just English. Are they good at English? Some of them. Others are exactly where you are right now, but they come anyway because that's the only way it gets better. Would you like to come today? They're meeting this afternoon. She was quiet for a moment, watching the rain. Yes, she said. I want to come. By the time we reached the cafe near our building, it was almost 4 o'clock. The rain had softened to a fine drizzle, and the streets had that clean, washed look that summer rain always leaves behind. Colors deeper, air lighter, everything reset. 3 people were already there when we arrived. Carlos, who works at a warehouse and came here from Colombia 18 months ago. Minjun, a Korean IT student who has been in the country for just under a year, and Sophia, a nurse from Brazil who has been here the longest of anyone in the group, nearly 3 years now. They were mid-conversation when we walked in, but they looked up immediately with the kind of open, welcoming energy that makes a group feel safe to enter. This is Hana, I said. She just moved here from Japan 3 weeks ago. Carlos's face lit up. 3 weeks? Oh man, I remember 3 weeks. I couldn't order a burger. I kept pointing at the menu. Everyone laughed, including Hana, who relaxed visibly at the reminder that this discomfort was universal and survivable. She sat down and the conversation picked up around her, easy and imperfect and real. Carlos talked about something that happened at work. His boss had said something too fast, and Carlos had said very politely, "Sorry, can you say that again, more slowly?" And his boss had, and Carlos had understood, and felt so proud he'd thought about it for the rest of the day. Minjun talked about a meeting where he offered an idea in English, and his supervisor had said, "Good point." 2 words that he said he would probably remember for the rest of his life. Sophia talked about a patient she helped that morning, an older woman who was frightened and confused, and how Sophia explained the situation in simple, careful words and watched the woman's shoulders come down from around her ears. Hana listened to all of this with the focused attention of someone taking notes in their head. Then Carlos turned to Hana. "Hana, what do you do? Are you working here?" She took a breath. "Not yet. I'm looking. I want to work in a bakery. In Japan, I worked in a bakery for 5 years. I make bread and cakes." The table's reaction was immediate and genuine. "A baker! Can you make Japanese bread, the really fluffy kind? Please bring something next time." Hana laughed, a real laugh, warm and surprised, the kind that comes out when you're not expecting to feel welcome and suddenly you do. After that, she talked more. Not perfectly and not without hesitation, but more. She told them about the bakery, about her grandmother's rule of never rushing a choice, about the strawberry farm that morning and the rain. People listened. People responded. The conversation moved the way good conversations do, sideways, circling back, jumping ahead, nobody really in charge of where it went. At some point, Hana said something I noticed but didn't interrupt. She said, "We run inside when the rain come." Come, not came, but Minjun understood her completely and responded to the meaning, not the grammar, and the conversation kept moving. That's how it works in real life. People respond to the meaning, not the mistakes. The table had that particular energy good conversations get when they've been going long enough for people to forget to be careful. Stories got longer, laughter came more easily, the pauses between thoughts stopped feeling like gaps that needed to be filled. At one point, Minjun told Hana about his first month, the confusion of bank forms, the horror of automated phone systems, the day he'd accidentally ordered a large meal at a fast food restaurant because he didn't know how to say he wanted the small one and felt too embarrassed to try. "I ate all of it," he said with great dignity. "I did not want to waste." Everyone laughed, not at Minjun, but at the shared absurdity of navigating a world in a language that isn't yours, and surviving it anyway, even with too many French fries. Everyone at the table had a version of that story. Everyone laughed at theirs too. The embarrassing moments, Sophia said, they are actually the ones you remember, and then later they become the funny ones. Later, Carlos agreed, not at the time. An hour passed without anyone really noticing. When we finally said our goodbyes, Minjun looked at Hana and said simply, "Your English is good. Don't be scared." She bowed slightly, an old habit, a beautiful one, and then straightened up and met his eyes. "Thank you. I'll come back in 2 weeks." She'd arrived nervous enough that her hands were tight around her bag. She left with Carlos's number in her phone, a standing invitation to the next meetup in 2 weeks, and the particular lightness that comes from being more okay than you expected. That transformation, I've watched it happen many times. It never stops being moving. We walked home in the drizzle, sharing Hana's small umbrella. She's shorter than me, which meant she had to hold it up at an angle that was slightly awkward for both of us. After a block, I took over. "Partners," I said. She smiled at that word. Partners. On the way, she talked about the afternoon in that slightly breathless way you do after something goes better than you expected. She liked Carlos's story about asking his boss to slow down. She liked that Sophia's patience couldn't tell from her careful words how nervous Sophia sometimes still felt. She liked that Minjun was once exactly where she was and now making good points in meetings. "They're all still learning," she said. "They're not finished." "Nobody ever is," I said. "Even I'm still learning things about the language I've taught for 10 years. She was quiet for a moment, turning this over. "Emma, can I ask you something? About finding a group like that, for people who are not your students? There's an app called Meetup. You can search for English conversation groups near you. Some are free, some cost a little. The main thing is, try to find one that has people from many countries, not just Japan. When everyone speaks the same first language, you end up using it." She took out her phone and searched as we walked. "There's one. Saturday mornings, downtown. Go. The first time is always alone. The second time, you know someone." Back at our building, I looked at my bag of strawberries and then at Hana. "Are you hungry?" "Very." "Come up. Let's cook together." In my kitchen, we spread the market haul across the counter. The strawberries, a loaf of bread, the eggs and garlic and tin of tomatoes from the quick stop I'd made on the way home. It was the kind of counter that becomes a small story when you look at it. The things you chose and carried and brought back. The evidence of a day well spent. Hana picked up a strawberry and held it to the light from the window. "Still good," she said, pleased. She'd been careful with them all day, carrying that basket like it held something precious, which I suppose it did. She washed the strawberries while I got the pasta water going, and we talked the whole time in the easy, overlapping way of people who have spent a whole day together and found they have more to say. She told me about shokopan, the incredibly soft Japanese milk bread she used to make at the bakery, the kind that takes all day and requires a particular kind of patience. I told you about Yuki, my student, who had once brought shokopan to class and left the entire room speechless. Yuki? She lives in this building, Hana said, surprised. 6A. I see her sometimes in the elevator. I didn't know she was your student. Small worlds. That's what cities are, really. Millions of small worlds overlapping. People living 2 floors from each other for months without knowing what they share until one rainy day sends them to the same strawberry farm. The pasta came together simply and well. Garlic softened in olive oil, a tin of tomatoes, the fresh basil from the pot on my windowsill that was, against all odds, still alive. Hana sliced the bread, I grated the Parmesan. The kitchen smelled the way kitchens should smell in the evening, of something good nearly ready. We ate at my small table, the windows still drizzle-damp from the afternoon's rain, and the conversation wandered from food to family to what it feels like to build a life in a place where you're still figuring out the language. Today, Hana said slowly near the end of the meal, I spoke English so many times. I don't believe it. Count them, I said. Bus stop, bus, farm, farm cafe, coffee group, walk home, here, now. That's 7 conversations in one day. She counted on her fingers. 7. Then she looked up. And nothing bad happened. Nothing bad ever happens. That's the secret nobody tells you. After dinner, neither of us felt like going anywhere. The rain had picked up again outside, a softer version of the afternoon's downpour, and the apartment felt warm and comfortable in that particular way it does when the weather is pushing gently against the windows. Do you want to watch something? I asked. Hana nodded, but added, I usually watch with Japanese subtitles. I miss things with English. I know, but try English tonight. Just try. You don't have to understand every word. Follow the story, follow the faces, let the sound wash over you. And when you do catch a word or a phrase, it'll feel like finding something. We chose a film together. It took a few minutes, Hana reading the descriptions carefully, occasionally asking me what a word meant, which I answered simply and without ceremony. We picked something not too fast, not too dark, a story about a woman who moves to a new city knowing nobody and builds a life from scratch, making friends in the most ordinary ways, through proximity and patience and a willingness to show up. A good choice for today, I thought. An almost too perfect choice. I turned on the English subtitles, and we settled in. Hana concentrated hard at first, I could tell, her body slightly forward, eyes moving between the faces and the text. After about 10 minutes, she relaxed into it, her shoulders dropping, something releasing. She was following the story. Near the end, she whispered, I understood more than I thought I would. I didn't say anything. I just let that sit. When the film ended, I turned off the television and the room went quiet. The kind of quiet that follows a good story when you're not quite ready to come back to your own life yet. Outside, the rain had softened to almost nothing, just a faint presence against the glass, a reminder that the world outside was still there. What did you think? I asked. She was quiet for a moment, genuinely thinking, not just filling the pause. I liked her, the woman. She was very brave. She went to a new city alone and didn't know anyone. A pause. Like me. What was your favorite part? She thought again. The part with the old man in the park. She doesn't know him, but she just starts talking, and they become friends. What did she say to him? Do you remember? Hana looked up slightly, replaying it. She said, "Nice day, isn't it?" And he said, "Yes." And she sat down, and then they talked. 4 words, I said. "Nice day, isn't it?" That's all it took. She looked at me. 4 words. I know you have those 4 words. She was quiet after that, but it was a full quiet, the kind that means someone is actually thinking, turning something over carefully. Not the silence of not knowing what to say, but the silence of knowing exactly what you've understood and wanting to hold it for a moment before it becomes ordinary. Outside, the rain made its soft sound against the glass, and I found myself thinking about those 4 words too. How many conversations never happen because someone is waiting to feel ready first, waiting for the perfect sentence, and meanwhile, the man is on the bench and the door stays closed. It was nearly 9 when Hana finally stood up, gathered her things, and put on her jacket. "I should go. My husband is home." "How is his English?" I asked. "Better than mine. He has been here 8 months." She paused. "At home, we always speak Japanese. It's easier." I nodded. "That's natural, but maybe try this. Choose one time of day, just one, where you use English together. Morning coffee, maybe. 20 minutes. That's enough." She thought about it. "Morning coffee. Yes, I can do that." She said it the way people say something when they've actually decided, rather than just agreeing to be polite. I recognize the difference. I've heard both versions enough times to know. She picked up her basket of strawberries, still beautiful, still perfect, chosen with her grandmother's patient eye, and carried it toward the door. Then she stopped and turned back. "Emma, today I spoke English so many times, and nothing bad happened, not once." "Not once," I agreed. "Nobody laughed, nobody was rude, people just talked to me." "Because you talked to them first. That's the whole secret, Hana. You open the door, people walk through it." She bowed, that lovely, instinctive bow, and then caught herself and smiled and waved instead, half one thing and half another, which felt exactly right. The door closed quietly behind her. I went to the window. The rain had stopped sometime while we were watching the film. I hadn't noticed it ending, which is how the best rain goes, quietly, without making a thing of it. The street below was wet and shining in the orange-yellow light of the street lamps. Every puddle a small, flat mirror. A couple walked past below, close together, in no particular hurry. A cat sat on a wall somewhere, watching something invisible in the dark. I made myself a cup of tea, chamomile, the kind that smells like the end of a good day, and sat at the window with it, looking at the wet street and thinking about everything that had happened since that lobby at 7:15 this morning. The pale blue sky, the strawberry field, the race to the cafe, soaked and laughing, the warm hour with Carlos and Minjun and Sophia, watching Hana's shoulders come down from her ears, the kitchen, the pasta, the smell of garlic and basil, the film, the 4 words, the silence after. My phone buzzed. A text from Hana. "Hi, Emma. Today was very good day for me. I feel happy and little tired. Is normal?" I read it twice, smiling. The grammar wasn't perfect. Very good day instead of a very good day. Little tired instead of a little tired. But I understood every single word, and I knew exactly how she felt. I typed back. "Very normal. That tired feeling is your brain growing. Sleep well, and tomorrow morning, 5 minutes with ChatGPT, remember?" 3 dots. Then, "I remember. Good night, Emma. Thank you." "Good night, Hana." I put the phone down and looked out at the wet street, at the lamplight on the puddles, at the quiet city settling into evening. Somewhere in this building, 2 floors above me, a woman from Japan was getting ready for bed, having spoken more English today than on any single day since she arrived. Not because she studied harder, not because someone corrected all her mistakes, not because she waited until she felt ready, because she opened the door. And people, warm, imperfect, struggling in their own ways, people, walked through it. That's the whole story, really. That's all of it, in a sentence. Before we finish, let's practice together. These are the real sentences from today's story. The ones Hana used, the ones Emma used, the ones that made the day. Say them with me, out loud, and mean them. Starting your day. I woke up and the sky was blue. I made coffee and headed out. Good morning. Where are you headed? Can I come with you? Is that okay? Of course. Let's go together. Describing what you see. I see many strawberries, very red, very small. It smells sweet, like fruit and warm earth. The sky was blue, but now there are clouds. It looks like rain is coming. I feel at peace right now. Ordering, asking, navigating. Can I have a hot chocolate, please? Sorry, can you say that again, more slowly? I didn't understand. One more time. Talking about your day. Today I spoke English so many times. Nothing bad happened, not once. People just talked to me. I was scared, but I spoke anyway. I feel happy and a little tired. That tired feeling means your brain is growing. And the most important 4 words of the day. Nice day, isn't it? 4 words. That's a door. And you have them. Now it's your turn. Not to repeat after me, to speak. Your own words, your own day, your own story. Tell me about today. Just the way Hana would. Simply, honestly, with whatever words come. Start here. This morning, I woke up and... Take your time. Speak out loud. Don't edit yourself before the words come out. Just let them come. Good. Now, one more. After you finish watching this, tonight or tomorrow morning, open ChatGPT, press the microphone, and tell it about your day. Just like you told me. Simple sentences, no pressure. You don't need to sound perfect. You just need to begin. Set it up the way we talked about. A2 level, 1 question at a time, only correct what people can't understand, and then just talk. That is how Hana will get better, and that is how you will too. Today, we spent a whole day together, from the lobby at 7 in the morning to a rainy window at 9 at night. We met Hana. We went to the farm. The rain came and changed the plan. We found shelter and warm drinks and a good conversation. We went to a coffee group and found people who understood exactly where Hana was because they'd been there too. We cooked together. We watched a story about a woman who built a life in a new city with 4 simple words. And all of it was told in sentences you understood. Maybe not every word, but the story, the feeling, the meaning. That's real English. You don't need to be perfect. You need to be present. You need to open the door. I'll be back next Monday. Same time, a new story, a new hour together. Until then, be a little like Hana. Go first. Choose the darkest strawberry. Open the door. Say, nice day, isn't it, to the person on the bench. Trust that nothing bad will happen, because mostly, wonderfully, it doesn't. This is Emma from Speak English Daily. Good night wherever you are.